Hey guys, what's going on? So welcome to Line Check episode 9. I am so thrilled on today's episode. The reason why is because it's with Anup Sastry, and if you are unfamiliar with who that is, then you are in for a real treat today. Anup Sastry is easily up there in my top maybe 3 or 4 drummers of all time. I love his drumming style to death. I can't get enough of his videos. I watch them so frequently. It's almost like part of my morning routine at this point to put on an Anup video as I drink my morning coffee or whatever it is. He's a fantastic songwriter, drummer, producer. He's worked with lots and lots of cool bands, and he's got a really great story to tell. So without further ado, let's get into it. Ladies and gentlemen, Anup Sastry. All right, so first of all, I want to thank you for taking the time to do this today, brother.
Thanks for having me.
Take me through some of the stuff that you've had going on recently. I've seen some musical releases as well as a lot of awesome playthrough videos on the channel. What have you been working on?
Lately, it's just been my solo EP. Literally just put it out, last week? So, hasn't really been out that long, but it's kind of just been like it's taken me forever to write. So, the past 2 years have been like trying to juggle, writing another solo release along with obviously staying relevant with video content for drums, while just life stuff, So that's kind of what's been happening for the past probably 2 years. Haven't really been touring much, which is good just because I've been able to stay home and really focus on a lot more things that in the past I've kind of put off because, I was either constantly on the road or I had something coming up where I knew I would be out of town for a while. So it's been one of those things where I've just had a lot of time to pursue a lot of endeavors at home. So
that's great, man. Time is that's always super sweet to take some time to sort of catch up on your own brand and what you've got on the go. I am kind of in a similar boat right now where I kind of stopped working as much with outside projects and sort of just focused on my own stuff, and it's sort of come with its own challenges, but it can be super freeing at times having just to sort of depend on yourself, I guess.
Right.
Have you found that? What are some of the pitfalls compared to working with others that you found when focusing on your own projects?
I mean, when focusing on my own stuff, I feel like it's a lot more difficult because it's just your ear and you don't really have the ability to be you don't really have the ability to step outside for a minute and view it from a different perspective or with fresh ears as easily unless you kind of tell yourself okay, I'm going to step away and revisit this in however much time, So for me, one of the biggest challenges about, just writing stuff on my own has been that it's one of those things where whenever I write music, I don't really focus on what other people are necessarily going to think about it. It's more so just my own personal standard for myself of, writing music and how well I think a song sounds and what it does to me emotionally, if that makes sense. So, I don't know, with that comes this huge sense of self-doubt. And that's probably the biggest challenge right there is the whole self-doubt aspect of working by yourself.
Is there specific, I guess, is there specific tactics that you've developed over time to help you come over that doubt, or certain things that you do to reassure yourself or to work through in the creative process that sort of keeps you motivated and keeps you going forward?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think kind of, just a lot of stuff outside of music and, just regular life has helped me out. I'm a huge animal guy, so I love my pets, just hanging out with them. I even set up a practice pad kit upstairs so I could just be closer to my dog, and it's not loud, you know what I mean? So I can still play drums. My cat can sit right there. My dog will sit right there as well. And I don't know, just certain things that kind of create a little bit more peace and retreat in your life, if that makes sense. Working out, that's always helped. And being home and not necessarily going on tour or traveling a whole bunch has really helped because I've been able to get on a routine with some of these things. So it's made it easier to kind of step outside of that whole, writing mindset.
Do you find that do you find that procrastination or putting things off is something that you struggle with? It's something that I struggle with personally. So I'm curious to see if sort of like, I guess like forcing yourself to get to things in timely manners and stay on those routines, if that's like an issue you deal with, or you just kind of sink in a routine and you're good to go.
Man, I think it's natural for humans to procrastinate, you know. I definitely deal with it for sure. It's weird because for me, whenever I know I have something to do, my mind kind of works in a way where it's like, okay, you need to just keep working on that one thing until it's done, because otherwise, you know, it'll constantly be on my mind and it won't really let me enjoy some of the other stuff that I was talking about earlier, like retreats and kind of like things that create peace and whatever. You know, I can't really enjoy those things if I know that like, oh, there's this one particular task. Like, I don't know, it could be as simple as like putting together a video so it's ready to upload in 2 days or something, right? So, you know, that kind of helps defeat the whole procrastinating side of me, but I definitely, you know, I struggle with it a little bit here and there.
So what does this daily routine look like then when you're sort of just working on your own material?
Man, it's a weird one. I wake up, eggs, pets, you know, that's pretty standard. And then it kind of goes to just, I just immediately get right to it, you know, just a cup of coffee, sit in front of the computer and start trying to create. For this past EP, I actually made a smaller setup in another room in the house just because, you know, I actually bought an interface, and I've sold it now, but I bought it just for the process. Because when I come to the studio where I track at, you know, there's you know, a clock, converters, a tower that I have to turn on. There's pre's. I know that's not really a big deal. I got to turn on a lot of gear. Oh no. But when you know what I mean? When you're just trying to like pick up a guitar really quickly and just like try some stuff, or like open up an instrument inside of Pro Tools, for example, really quickly and just do some stuff. It just helps if you just have to push like one or two buttons and you're there, you know? So I kind of built this other setup, and pretty much just worked out of that room for majority of it. You know, I'd probably easily spend anywhere between 8 to 10 hours whenever I was like, you know, in the zone working on material. 8 to 10 hours would just go by. You know, you kind of forget to eat, and my eating habits weren't too good as far as like they weren't consistent or whatever. And, you know, I would take breaks from the gym just because I was so focused. So it's weird. I don't know about you, but like I'm still working on balancing those things right now. You know, like if I know I have something to do later in the day, that affects how much I can focus on whatever the task is I'm doing before that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. A lot of the points you brought up, I deal with myself as well. Like I found that in the last, so as of December of last year, I was able to put aside the day job and sort of focus on doing my own stuff here on YouTube and self-sustain off that. Yeah. Hell yeah. Thank you. And with that, most of I'd say probably all of the struggles that you just brought up, I have encountered along the way. Right now, the hardest thing for me is the eating habit. It's exactly that. Like I find that most days, unintentionally, I will forget to until the sun goes down, kind of thing, and then I'll just gorge because I'm so hungry because I just put it off all day. Right. And stuff like that's just not healthy. So yeah, it's the balance for sure. Again, you mentioned the lifting thing. I'm the same way. I have a bit of a home gym setup that I used for years, and that was like my only place where I trained. And for the first time in my life, I got a gym membership like last week because I'm like, well, at least if I get a gym membership, now I can like, I have to hold myself accountable to being at the gym at a certain time of day, and then hopefully that'll sort of cascade into the rest of the day, like after I leave the exercise. Right. So I totally relate with a lot of that, man. Yeah, no, absolutely, man. I might have to pick your brain sometime about the whole YouTube stuff. I feel like I've kind of slacked on that, to be honest. I'm kind of just more, you know, simple about it. Like, oh, I do a video, I put it up. I'm not really too focused on like, you know, the analytics or monetizing stuff. I think I really suck at that kind of stuff. So you know what? As you bringing it up, but let's talk about that for a bit, because I've been watching your channel. Okay, so I'm gonna flatter you for a second. I have to do this because the fact is, this is episode 9 of this series.
Cool.
And I've had 8 really awesome drummers on here, and a lot of guys that I really respect, like Brandon Buckley from Shakira, and
Nice.
I talked to Gabe a couple weeks ago from I Prevail. But you're one of the guys that, like, I've been watching your videos since like day one, man. Like, I remember I was talking to my brother before calling you here, and I was like, yo, like, when I was 19, I was going over to my buddy's place with a guitar and we were writing, and I was watching like Anup every day. So it's really, really cool that we're getting to do this now. And what I wanted to ask on the YouTube side of things is, I've kind of taken the approach with YouTube where, like, I don't really have a whole lot of instrumentation ability outside of the drums. Like, I can do like post pro and impact type stuff. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
And I kind of have an ear for mixing, but as far as like pitches, I have a really tough time with that because I've always just been inside of the drum set. So
Right.
when I stepped into YouTube, I took the approach that I'm just going to focus on YouTube and I'm going to blast the channel and try and get as many subs. With your channel, I've always sort of had the impression that YouTube is kind of like, just like, you know, it's a byproduct of the other things that you're up to support yourself. Is that the case? Or like, how much time do you really think or concern yourself with YouTube compared to working with bands or writing for bands or recording bands or all the other stuff you have on the go?
Man, to be honest, I don't know. The whole YouTube thing for me now has kind of like lost its flame. And not to be like a Debbie Downer or anything, but I don't know. Something about making videos now just isn't, it doesn't have this like, the same kind of like, it doesn't like hit me the same way anymore. Before, whenever, you know, I would finish a video, I would be like, oh wow, I just made that, you know, that's crazy. And, you know, you're putting it together and like, you kind of get this tingly feeling when you're uploading it and stuff. And like, you're like, oh no, are people going to like it? Are people going to like it? And I feel like I've just kind of like I don't get that feeling anymore. If anything, it's more so I use it as kind of like a tool to still have content for me to get work outside of YouTube, you know? It's not really so much of like an inspirational thing for me to do anymore, if that makes sense. Just because I'm really busy with a lot of other stuff that like making video isn't as easy to do these days, you know? But yeah, I mean, like, you know, like you said, it's kind of one of those vessels for me to like advertise myself, to get more work, you know? 'Cause I don't really make any money. I don't make any money on YouTube. So majority of the work that I get is because I might post a video and someone might see it and be like, oh, I really like your drum sound, blah, 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 you know, and they can kind of see that like I'm working with decent gear, decent drums, you know, and they immediately can kind of trust that like when they reach out, you know, I can maybe deliver to them some drums that they could use for like a release, if that makes sense, you know?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So in that sense, I guess, you know, YouTube has really helped me out, you know, but when it comes to monetizing and actually making like YouTube my primary source of, and it's never been a primary source of income for me. So I think, to be honest, I'll just say it. I think the total I've made from like YouTube AdSense, for example, it's been maybe just under $600.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow, man. Why is that? I'm so curious. I figured that it would be higher just because you don't, like, with my covers, I can't monetize any of them because it's somebody else's material.
Same.
So
yeah. I can't, majority of my videos I can't monetize. And so I guess I do technically make some revenue from YouTube, but it's not directly from YouTube. How it works for me is that I use TuneCore to publish all of my my original material. Mm-hmm. So what TuneCore will do is they'll put a copyright claim on any of my songs whenever they are put on YouTube. And I don't have those links. So anytime, and I don't really know if there is a way to link it, maybe that's just my own ignorance, but if someone watches this and wants to teach me, please tell me. But basically, I can't monetize any of the videos that are for my own like material because I've published that song through TuneCore. So TuneCore recognizes that, and then ads will be placed on my videos for original content, and then that ad revenue goes to my TuneCore. So in that sense, I make money from YouTube, but as far as like YouTube itself, you know, like the AdSense revenue, it's not much at all.
So I wonder, and I'm not sure if you'd have the answer to this, but I'm curious now, hearing that, I wonder what the relationship is between like how much you would have gotten if you didn't publish through TuneCore versus publishing through TuneCore and allowing TuneCore to monetize it for you. Because wouldn't you kind of think that it'd be like almost the same idea? It's just that it's going through a third party before it gets to you.
Yeah, exactly. And to be honest, I don't really know how to answer that because I've never done it the other way around. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I can't really imagine it really being more or even equal to what TuneCore does for me because you know, there's only one of my videos that has a significant amount of views where the revenue from that one video could potentially, you know, earn me a lot. And TuneCore actually monetizes that for me. And I can see my YouTube revenue all the time from TuneCore, and that song always pops up. But all of my other videos, you know, I don't really get that like a crazy amount of views on my videos. It's usually, you know, I might peak at like 20, 30, 40,000 in that area, you know? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that for one of my songs, I don't really necessarily think that's a high amount of views to earn me that much revenue through YouTube, if that makes sense, you know?
Yeah, for sure. I most of my videos hit around the same numbers, like between 30 and like 60,000.
Right.
And what I've found is just like it, in a lot of ways, it comes down to duration. Because as soon as you're a talking head and you can get past the 10-minute mark, you can start adding in as many ads as you need to.
Right.
And then it starts going up from there. It's the songs, like it's any video that for me that's under 10 is drastically lower than the videos that are over, sort of thing.
Yeah,
so I can totally see that.
It's weird, man. It's really weird trying to I'm really trying to dive into that kind of stuff more and more and more, especially because, you know, I'm not really pursuing the touring thing actively as much anymore. You know, I kind of have no excuse now to learn that side of stuff a little bit better. But it's tough, you know. It kind of forces you to be like your own entrepreneur, like on the spot.
Yep, for sure. I'm new to it still, but I've had some guys help me along the way, and like even after this call, I can definitely share some tips and tricks for sure.
That would be awesome. Yeah, absolutely. That would be definitely
absolutely,
great.
Man. Absolutely. Okay, so let's go down the touring route there. So why have you decided to not spend as much time on the road?
Unfortunately to say, just for, you know, financial reasons. It's just tough. You know, it's not, and don't get me wrong, like, you know, you can absolutely tour if that's what you want to do. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's one of those things for me personally. I just can't go out on the road anymore and not, you know, make money.
Yep.
It's one thing to make enough money to live on the road, but it's another thing to like make enough money to not only live, but then on top of that, pay your bills as well.
Yeah.
And a lot of musicians will also have jobs when they come home, so that helps. But, you know, I don't really want to take that route necessarily. Like, I don't want to have a 9-to-5 or anything when I come back home, because there's a lot of other endeavors that I want to pursue, you know, within music. That I think would maybe slightly, I don't know, I've never taken that route, so I can't really talk, but either way, it's just a financial reason, man. You know, it just got tough. So
yeah, that's exactly the answer that I give when people ask the same question to me, like the exact same thing, because it was for the better part of the last 8 years, it would be like road, then come home and 9-to-5. And like, I just got to the point where like, I wanted all the hours that I felt like I was burning, you know, working at somebody else's dream. I wanted that to go into my musical pursuits. So cool. Like, I can 100% relate with that, man, for sure.
That's kind of cool you just said that, because that's exactly Yeah. So okay. Yeah. What'd you do, by the way? You mentioned you had a job before. What'd you do?
Oh, I was oh man, I worked so many jobs. At one point, I was actually like on a modeling agency and I was doing modeling gigs.
Really?
And yeah, and that literally just came about because I knew a couple guys in music that were doing that on the side, and they hooked me up with the agency and got me involved with all that because it was super flexible, right? And the agent that I worked under was kind of he had his hand a little bit in helping me with the music stuff. And that I guess it just related well, you know. It's like it's another art, and then it's not you know, I don't have to worry about an employer being upset that I have to leave for X amount of time, whatever. So I did that for a bit. I actually ended up in it's crazy. Some of the crazy opportunities that were rolled out. I ended up in like an Adam Sandler movie as an extra.
What?
I did a bunch of man, it's crazy. I did a bunch of like TV and stuff. It was the Pixels movie.
Holy crap. All right.
Yeah, if you look in the background, you might see me, but I was like, most of the time on set for those types of things, because of how long the shoots are, I would try not to get picked, and so that I could just like be on my laptop working on something else.
Oh,
you know what I mean? Yeah. So I don't know, that kind of stuff. And then the job that I left directly, I was literally just a warehouse manager. So I was doing 40 hours a week, 7 till 3:30 or something like that, 8 till 4 or whatever.
Right.
And then I would get off and pass out right away because I was waking up super early, and then I was doing the electric kid thing. So I get up at like 2, 3 a.m. and get on the Roland V. Like I have a TD25 that I practice on. Get on that, and then go to work after that, and then come home. And I don't know. It's just there was the sacrifice of not working with guys, not being in a studio, not being on the road, for getting to always rely on yourself and always every day, you know, it's like you describe with your schedule. Every day you drink that coffee and you know now, okay, I get to work on music. I don't have to go and lift boxes. I don't have to go and sit on a set. It's like although you have to give some stuff up, it's a really freeing feeling, right?
Yeah, totally, man. And I think when you get to a point too where you're maybe slowly, because I haven't figured it out by any means, and I am still absolutely working on trying to become like, get to a financial state where I can, you know, be comfortable, right? But I feel like once you have like a little bit of taste of like, you know, like, oh, okay, I feel like I'm figuring it out. I'm able to handle certain, you know, expenses, and this is kind of, you know, you're kind of trickling down that route a little bit more and more and more. The whole idea of getting a job kind of seems like a little bit of a disservice to yourself at that point for not being like, okay, well, let me just push harder now, you know?
Exactly.
And I don't know, it's tough. So it's weird, man. That's crazy though about like, you know, the movie stuff and modeling. Holy crap. I would have never guessed.
Yeah, no, it was nuts. I did it for the better part of 2 years, and I don't know, honestly too, like because of my music background, I got most of the gigs I got were something to do with music. Like one of the ones that I was really stoked on was I got to be in a series of commercials for like a Canadian version of MTV. It's like here in Canada, it's called Much Music. I think
Much
MTV
Music,
owns it. Yeah. So I did a few commercials for them, and like I got that gig literally because when I showed up to the audition, they were like, all right, air drum, air guitar, and I was like, dude, I can do that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So they put a guitar in my hand and they're like, here, fake a solo and we're gonna CGI in flames. So I'm in one of the commercials, I'm just like shredding guitar. I have no idea what I'm actually doing, like I didn't learn anything, but I'm just, you know, air guitaring on a guitar, and they had flames coming out of the neck. I don't know, crazy shit like that.
That's awesome.
Yeah, man. All right, man. So at this point, I'd love for you to take me back to your roots, take me back to your childhood, what got you into music early in life, and just sort of progress on through like what early lessons looked like and what some of your early interests were in music.
Well, I mean, I used to play the clarinet, and that was sick. I was like in fourth grade. I think fourth grade is when I went to my parents and I was like, hey, I want to play an instrument in band. I kind of always been into music before that, just because my parents were constantly playing stuff, and you know, they kind of came from small musical backgrounds as well. And granted, that's not what they ended up doing or anything, but you know, it was in the family, I guess. On both sides. So whenever we'd go to like family get-togethers and stuff, I don't know, there was a lot of Indian music. I'm not really a big fan of Indian music, but like there was a lot of it growing up, and that's cool, but maybe I'm not a big fan of it just because I heard it so much growing up.
Well, yeah, like isn't that how it works culturally speaking? Usually, like you don't want to listen to what your parents listen to, sort of,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But it's. I'm still thankful that I got a lot of that in my system when I was young, right?
Yep.
And then there's a lot of random stuff. Like my dad is a huge Pink Floyd fan, and Santana and that kind of stuff. So I don't know. There was a lot of that going around, and then when I started playing clarinet, when I went to middle school, my best friend at the time was played snare drum in concert band, and I think he had just started playing drum kit maybe a few months prior to that or something, and so he got a drum kit at home. It was a CB kit, that company.
Oh, of course, yeah, the
CB
Walmart
drums.
company.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah, hell yeah.
So yeah, and I think it was like a green, it was not a pretty kit, but at the same time, it was like a brand spanking new CB kit, So I went over to his house one day after school. Or no, sorry, he played a really easy groove on the snare drum one day in band class. Yeah. It do bat do that. That's it.
Yeah.
That's all it was, and I remember turning around and just being like, that was the best fucking thing I've ever heard. You know what I mean? Just like hooked right there and then. And from that point onwards, I went to his house, I think like a day or two later, was on his kit learning that same exact thing, except adding a kick drum in. And like, day after that, I went to the, band director and I was like, hey, I want to switch to drums. And she was really cool, man. Mrs. McKendrick, she's awesome. She saw that I was pretty into it, and she let me go ahead and start playing drums. So that's where it kind of like took over.
So I want to take you back to the Indian music real quick, because I find it really interesting that you listened to a lot of that you had to listen to Indian music early in life because of your parents, and I feel like I can almost hear that in some of the stuff that you write today. Because correct me if I'm wrong. Now, I like briefly have talked to guys about this, but doesn't like a lot of Indian music revolve around like scales that have tones, that have notes in between the notes that we use in Western music?
I guess I don't
like they have like quarter tones where we would have semi, right? There's kind of like spaces between.
To be honest, I have no idea, man.
Oh, really? Okay, yeah. True. I remember a dude I knew years ago played the sitar, and he explained it to me like that. Like there was notes between the Western notes.
Yeah. I've heard that too. My mom played briefly the vine, which is like the twin sister of a sitar, basically. Yeah. And we actually still have one, and it's an awesome instrument. But I remember I think it was before I played clarinet, but she basically signed me up for lessons for that. And then my dad played tablas.
Oh, okay.
So
right on.
So yeah, so I mean, like the whole growing up on Indian music wasn't a bad thing by any means. I don't know. I'm not really a big fan of like the Bollywood stuff today, or like I don't know. It's okay, but
yeah.
But yeah, like I had a whole bunch of cousins that were like, I guess, sang and stuff, and like there's cousins that dance. There's a lot of cousins that are really involved with that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Which is cool. So good culture.
So looking at the size of your sticks, as well as how incredible your form is, I would guess that you went through some sort of drum corps, drum line experience or program. You did? Okay, yeah. Cool. Let me know a little bit about that.
Well, I mean, I did marching band, drumline for 2 years in high school.
Okay.
I was super into that, but it really sucked because our high school, the music director, band teacher guy, it was just one person, and he taught all the classes. Such an awesome dude, wicked musician, like super awesome. He would always play like these open mic jazz nights or whatever, in Frederick and downtown and stuff. And I remember seeing him a couple times, and you're watching your high school band director out of the element of teaching a marching band, and he's just shredding on like, I think it was a saxophone or something. And it's just like, whoa, this guy is crazy, But what sucked about it was that the budget for the band was horrible. There was like basically no budget. And I remember there's a point where we fundraised money and the principal actually took some of the money out of our budget to pay for like some of the football team's equipment, you know?
Oh.
Yeah. So basically we got like new drums at one point, but we didn't really get much after that. And like, you know, like the quints were still like 60. We went from like 80-pound quints to like 60-pound quints. And that's what I played, quints.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. The entire experience was okay. The entire marching band was all consisted of, except for maybe like 2 or 3 people that I think still play today. Every single one of those people just, I don't know. You could tell that like none of them, like music wasn't really like the thing they were going to do.
Yeah,
you know?
for sure. Yeah.
And I don't mean to sound like arrogant when I say that, but it just, you got that vibe. Like you got that vibe of like, you know, okay, they clearly want to do this now, but it's not something that like they're as passionate about as like really excelling at that instrument. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
And the drum line was just horrible. I mean, one of my best friends, you know, still good friends today, he was the other quints player. And then when he graduated, you know, he was gone because he was 2 years ahead of me. And him and I would always put in the work to like practice, as well as some of the other drumline members. But then we ran out of drumline members. So like we had to like take like flute and like trumpet players and be like, hey, do you want to play a bass drum? And it just became a mess. So I quit halfway through because I was like, I can't, this is pointless.
So this was all 2 years in high school.
2 years into high school, yeah.
Right on. So. And then after high school, what did you get up to?
After high school, I was in a local band for the longest time called The Lost Tourist. Man, I missed that band. Yeah, that was fun. We were confused as hell when it came to genre of music, but that's what I loved about it. Because it was like a Incubus meets like Dillinger meets like something other weirdness. I don't know. It was crazy. But we did a couple like, you know, DIY tours. Like, you know, we would go out for I think like 3 weeks to a month. We only did 2 of them, I think, and they were all during the summers. But yeah, I was kind of doing that while going to community college for music theory and going to night school for audio engineering. So
damn.
Yeah, I was kind of doubling up on a whole bunch of stuff and started doing like some live sound gigs here and there. Nothing crazy, but it was kind of in that weird area where I just told myself, all right, you just need to like surround yourself with music, because at that point after high school, I'd kind of like said, okay, this is what you're going to do. You're going to try and figure it out, right? So all of my decisions were basically made to surround myself with music as much as possible. So when I was doing the whole schooling thing, I wasn't really playing drums that much either, because I was just, you know, constantly in class or something.
Yeah.
But I was also learning a lot about like the production side of stuff, because another one of my best friends, Joe Benny, awesome producer, man. He got me into like making beats, like hip hop beats and stuff. And I have like an old MPC 1000. And him and I would just get together and we would just stay up all night, you know, just doing that, sampling records and like making stuff and then whatever. I don't know. It was a weird time. So I feel like there wasn't really a focus, but that's because I was still trying to figure a lot of stuff out.
So after you wrapped up community college music theory and going to these night school classes for audio engineering, what did you step into after that? Did you have like a transition phase where you were like, oh shit, like now I really got to figure this out, or what kind of came about?
Yeah, so Alex Rudinger, my dude, was, yeah, man, that kid is awesome. But yeah, him and I have grown up together pretty much in Frederick, right? And you know, him and I are, you know, we've been best friends for a while now, right? We've known each other for years. But basically, he had been doing the YouTube thing for I think like a good year or two before I even started. No, maybe even longer than that. He'd been killing it. So I kind of just got inspired by that, and you know, just a couple other drummers that were doing the whole YouTube thing, to just be like, all right, let me just try it, you know. And I was still finishing out the audio engineering school. I didn't transfer to like a university for music theory. I just did 2 years at a community college and stopped. I was actually turned off by the music director there. It's horrible. But basically did the first video, and then, you know, that kind of did what it did. And then I was like, okay, this is kind of cool, you know, and just tried to do it some more. And then started hitting up like musicians in the whole progressive metal scene, you know, like Andrew Reynolds, Drusive. You familiar with him?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, so I hit him up and like, you know, learned some of his songs. And we like jammed some of the stuff a couple times, but we never played live or anything. But I made videos for him, and then that's when I kind of found Intervals. That's when I found, you know, Sky Harbor, did videos for that, and then ended up joining those groups and doing stuff, and yeah.
So in your time in school, what were some points that you learned? What were some lessons that you learned, or some struggles that you went through that taught you some lessons that like you really, really valued, and still to this day you find that it's like really benefited you in your career outside of the schooling, and like going and, you know, making this happen in the music industry?
Well, from the music, it's weird because there was two sides to the schooling thing that were just completely night and day different. You know, the music theory part of it was really helpful because I took away a lot of really good ear training from that. You know, when it comes to just interval and chord recognition and that kind of stuff, it was really helpful. So that kind of like allowed me to, I don't know, I feel like that really helped me to, when it came to writing my own music. Another thing that I took away from that, and this doesn't go to everybody who studies music at a college, you know, or university or whatever, but the community college I went to, and a lot of the surrounding students that I was with in those classes, and even the teachers, it was a very weird vibe. Like, people were afraid to break rules, if that makes sense. Like, we were still analyzing like Bach and like Mozart, and like, I don't know, we were, you know, like writing out pieces from like ages ago. And I get it, in a music theory course they're trying to teach you some history and stuff, but it, at the same time, it was just like, this is kind of old, you know, like this it feels like you're not really trying to promote us. Like, the whole point of music is that there's so many different things you can do, right? It allows you to be super creative and whatever. So like, I feel like one of the biggest things that I took away from that was just more of an aspiration to want to like push the limits for myself, if that makes sense. Of
course. Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, because a lot of the other students, man, they were so like focused on like, you know, just the theory part of it, but there's theory and then there's creativity, you know?
Yep.
And I don't know, it's a crazy power when you can mesh those two together. But you know, my theory sucks. I won't lie. But from the audio engineering school, one thing that I took away from that was, this is a little bit more technical, signal flow. That has absolutely helped me in so many scenarios. Just kind of knowing where your signal is in the chain at all times.
Yes.
I know this sounds really nerdy and technical, but man, they drilled that into our heads, and it was definitely super valuable. So
no, absolutely. That's something I talk to a lot of guys about that are asking me how to get into it. And I tell everybody, the first thing you need to learn is signal flow, because it's going to come up. It's going to, like, even right now, like if I didn't have, like, I'm no expert in it, right? Like I'm a high school dropout for the most part. So like, I don't have any formal education in this stuff, but the knowledge I have of it, when I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do and how to do it, signal flow was the first thing I bumped into. And I ended up taking, there's this website called Coursera.org, and it has a bunch of like university courses listed on it. And I took like music production basics from Berkeley off that. Essentially, it's just like the lectures for the course. And I just went through all that, and like, it really, really comes up everywhere. Even right now, if I didn't have like a basic knowledge of signal flow, the way I'm recording audio here at the desk, right? Like that, you know, it wouldn't be as easy. It wouldn't be as clean. And I think that's, even in the YouTube space, a lot of guys struggle with that.
Yeah, no, totally, man. I mean, and it just kind of limits you as far as like your gear goes too, I feel like, you know, I mean, like, what are you going to, you know, when you, like here, for example, I don't really have a crazy setup or anything like that necessarily, but I pretty much have like a tiny console. I'm doing the quote thing.
Yeah.
You'll see in the video.
Yeah.
But a tiny console in rack form. You know what I mean? So like, I don't know. It's definitely super helpful when it comes to like knowing your gear and stuff, and when it comes to engineering. When working with bands, especially if I have other bands or drummers come in here, it takes a huge part of the whole guesswork out of it.
Yep, for sure. So let's talk specifically drums now. So at what point was it during was it during post-secondary, or was it after? Like, when did you really dive into that instrument and sort of build yourself out?
It was probably when I was like 20, 21 years old. So like, because I was always playing drums, but I never really took the practice part of it as seriously as I did when I started doing the YouTube thing. And just prior to that probably as well, that's when I kind of like hunkered down a little bit and like said, okay, you're going to like be consistent about this. In fact, I kind of wish I had some of that mentality today, but I don't know. I just kind of had that like young 20s kind of spunk with it, like, I got a gig with, I got my first touring opportunity was with Jeff Loomis. And that blew my mind, because I grew up listening to Nevermore and stuff. And I don't know, just crazy, right? Jeff Loomis, holy shit. And ended up doing 4 tours with him. And as soon as I got that, I remember I was like, okay, you can't fuck around now. Like, you have to just get to a certain point with this stuff, So like, I was doing certain like foot drills, certain hand drills, and that I still do today, but of course they've evolved a little bit. But yeah, I'd say around like 20, 21 years old is when I really started to be like, okay, you need to step it up with like your practice regimen.
And in what ways did you step, and what, like, how, so describe, like, I don't know, was it 3 hours a day rudiments? Was it like conquering certain books? Like what you know what I'm trying to say? What did you get into? Yeah.
It was just consistency, really.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, as far as material or content that I was practicing, it is what it is, because it's going to differ from whatever scenario is about to occur at that point, right? Whether it was for a YouTube video, whether it was to go on tour, I have a set to learn, whatever it was, I was just much more consistent about it,
Oh, I see. I got you.
Yeah. So like a 2 hours of like focused practice, like 2 hours of just actual playing was like normal, and it was kind of like at the very least kind of thing. You know what I mean? So some days it would easily be 3, 4, 5 hours of just that. So yeah. So I can totally relate to a lot of what's been said, especially what you're talking about right now, because I went through the same thing. Like, once I hit a point where I was like, okay, this is going to be it. I remember really diving in. The first thing I did was I was super sloppy over a click. So the first thing I did was just like stick control, the book, over top of a click, like hours every day kind of thing. And that book sucks, man.
Oh yeah, it's painful for sure. The thing that got me through it, and I tell this to a lot of guys today, I'm like, if you're gonna do, like, once you learn the rudiment to the point of you can play it, but now you just have to sort of like assign it to muscle memory, put on a podcast or a TV show or something. So that's what I used to do a lot. I used to sit.
Yeah, totally, man. I say the same thing.
Oh really? Hell yes. I was when I was a kid, I used to sit in my parents' living room and throw on like a movie or Netflix or whatever. I'd just sit there and like whatever rudiment I just got, like double stroke paradiddle or whatever it is, like I would just do that, and every little bit I would set a timer every 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and then just sort of like push the tempo up 10 BPM and keep going and moving along like that. And it's so funny that you say you kind of wish you had that still, because I feel the same way. I feel like as I've gotten as I've sort of progressed along, I wish I still had that same level of discipline. Right now I'm 24.
24. Oh man, you're young.
Yeah.
I'm 29. I'm an old man now, dude. I'm like, I feel old. I don't have the sponginess. What do you mean? You're 24, dude.
I know, but the thing, I guess, yeah, it's true. So the thing with me is like I mentioned earlier that I didn't do post-secondary. I didn't even really I finished high school, but I did it on my laptop in the touring situations that I in. So I started playing with bands on the road halfway through grade 11, and I left high school at that point. So
wow.
Yeah, so I kind of got a bit of an earlier start. I was really, really blessed to have parents that were super encouraging with it, I guess. And they were the ones that actually suggested. They're like, you can't keep up with touring and going to high school. Do you want to just we'll help you make it work so that you can get your high school done, which I did. And also still, they in a lot of ways too, they financially helped me sort of make some of the early tours happen, because I was working with guys.
That's awesome.
I was working with guys in some cases that 5-6 years older than me, and the level of gear that I needed, they helped fund so that I could make that kind of stuff happen.
That's really cool, man. That's not even like an unheard thing to do, because sorry, wow, blanking.
Yeah, no worries.
Alex Rudinger. I mean, he's a great example that he did the same. I'm pretty sure. Yeah. He graduated high school a year early, and because he was just sure. He was like, "Yep, I'm gonna stay in my basement and get sick."
Yep. He, he's gonna stay in his basement and become the god of open hand.
Oh, dude, it's nuts, man. I mean, sorry to go off on a tangent here, but because him and I are actually working on a drum instrument right now, so it's funny, I don't know, you'll call him up sometimes and he'll just, or you'll be texting him or something, and he's like, yeah, I'm just doing a foot endurance run really quickly, but his foot endurance run will be I don't know, holding 210, 220 or something for 5 minutes on his feet, and I don't know, that might even be insultingly slow for him. So if you sees this, I know you can do more, Alex, but
it's crazy that you guys are so close. I had no idea that you had the background. You, and I've told the people this for years, my early roots were Luke Holland and Cobus, but right now the two guys I start every day with is watching an Alex video and watching an Anup video, and then maybe if I still have time, watching an Annika Niles video. But you guys are my favorite, man. Your drumming styles, and I mean, I guess you've been friends, so it makes sense why I am drawn to both of your styles, because they're very similar. So I can to sort of see that relationship.
I appreciate
is cool.
that. I don't know how I fall into a category of Annika and Alex. Those two are some crazy drummers.
Oh, dude, the three of you are nuts, man. I mean, what I really respect with you is the fact that okay, so you know what? This is a really great segue, because the next thing I wanted to talk about was your process in writing these songs, and I've heard that I've heard that you use MIDI piano roll to actually write out a lot of the guitars and the instrumentation and stuff. That's something that really blows me away with your original stuff. So how do you go about? Is that true? And if so, how do you go about writing them? What's your process?
It's not true.
Oh, okay.
It's kind of true. It's weird. I don't know. I kind of love all the weird stuff I hear about how I write my music. But basically, what I end up doing is I pick up a guitar, and I actually will have an idea for a riff, but because I don't play the guitar, I have no ability as far as getting what's in my head out into an instrument, right? So what I'll do is I'll sit there and I'll play, individual notes of this riff that I think are what I'm going for. And basically I'll arrange that to form a riff. And now it's gotten... Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, just riff build, all just straight, chopping the notes together kind of thing inside the DAW.
Yeah, okay. Totally, man. And the thing about it too is I used to be so worried about it as far as it sounding super edited and whatnot. But then I kind of just started doing a little bit more research and work on okay, what are ways that I can improve my writing ability on a guitar by doing this that can maybe make it sound not so super choppy like it once used to be. Mm-hmm. So over the years, I've gotten a little bit more efficient as far as maybe trying to play things, and then just speeding it up or something or whatever, you know what I mean? So it's weird. And plus everything is edited these days. So I stopped caring so much about my stuff sounding super edited or anything like that. And I just kind of embraced it.
Yeah, man. I mean, I was drawn to your music because of that style, and I can see now why. I mean, if everything's riff built in that fashion, it totally makes sense why people would compare it to sort of like a MIDI structure. But but that's super cool. I mean, that's I feel like that would probably be even more difficult than. I mean, it's all relevant, but
yeah, it's weird. Well, because I tried one program, and oh my God, it was a nightmare.
Like a NKI
I won't say
type thing.
Yeah, I won't say the name of it or anything, but like it's an old one, and so like I don't even think people have probably heard of it, to be honest. But I saw a clip of it on some like Ultimate 7-string or one of those forums like years ago.
Yeah,
and I was like, holy shit, this was made with software, and the guy who made it, I think he's a vocalist. If I remember, he's a really talented vocalist. Anyways, he made this like minute-long thing, and of course it was super groovy and just like really heavy. It had that like classic like progressive metal, for lack of a better term, gent kind of like thing when that was, you know what I mean, when that was like starting to be like, holy shit, like everyone was like going crazy over it.
Yeah.
So it had that cliche like mix and everything on it, and I was like, holy shit, I can't believe this is software, right? So I hit up that guy and I was like, hey, what library are you using? And told me what library. And then he told me that it also took him like a really long time to write that 1-minute clip using that software. So I was like, huh. So I bought it, ended up trying to use it. It was horrible. I mean, like, it just like, you know what I mean? Because like, dude, think about it. Like, take a snare drum, for example, okay? You have, even better, take a kick drum, for example, right? Yeah. How many articulations do you have on a kick drum necessarily when you're programming for metal?
Oh yeah, 127.
Exactly. You have and you have one articulation and however many velocities,
exactly,
right? Like your articulation is you're going to hit the kick drum.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where the drums I feel like are a little bit more straightforward when they're put into an instrument form.
Yeah.
Versus a guitar, you have things like, slides, hammer on. I mean, if you're plucking a string with your right hand, or I don't know. I mean, I probably sound like an idiot right now because obviously I don't play guitar. But there's so many more different articulations for just one like note that you fret on the fretboard.
Yep.
So there's all these key triggers that you had to enter in with this software to get it to sound real, and I don't know. It was just unbearable. So I said, "Fuck this! Pick up a guitar and just like figure it out."
That's super impressive, man. That's crazy. That's something that I wish I could do for sure, brother. Holy.
You can. It's much easier than it might seem.
I gotta give it a shot for sure, because I guess like one of the things that the further along I get into the YouTube thing, now that I've started to streamline my content and I've focused everything down to the types of formats that I like, and because of that, everything's becoming more of a habit, which is sick, and that's giving me some more free time. And now I really want to dive into actually like writing some of my own stuff again. I used to do a lot more writing with other guitarists. Like I did a ton. I had one friend of mine, John Eberhard. Me and him, we wrote tons of music together over the course of a few years. We've been in like a few bands together, kind of thing. But I always needed him, and to a degree he needed me. But as he got better at programming drums, I became less and less involved. But
right, I got you.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying. But now it's like I really want to pick it up and like try it out. So I don't know. Maybe I gotta get a guitar.
Yeah, no, man, it's definitely worth it. So I mean, trust me, it sounds complicated, but it's a lot easier. I feel like if people were to actually be able to see how I like make a riff, they'd be like, oh wow, that's actually not that terrible,
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so let's talk gear for a little bit. Something that, I mean, getting like super into the drumming side of things, something that really interests me is your cymbal choices from song to song. So what is it about the certain cymbals you pick, and what inspires you when it comes to the sound of these cymbals before stepping into tracking over a song that you're working on or something like that?
Well, when it comes to cymbals, I'm pretty stale about my selection, to be honest. So basically, I kind of approach cymbal choice as far as like versatility under a microscope, essentially, under in a recording situation, right? So for me, a lot of my cymbal choice comes from, can I handle a decent range of session work and video work with this hi-hat choice, right? So it doesn't really necessarily have to do with anything super inspiring necessarily. Not to say that I'm not inspired by my cymbals, because I'm absolutely, it feels awesome to have great cymbals to play, right? Don't get me wrong. But at this point, for me, it's more just like it's a very much more like a technical thing. I need my cymbals to be, like to just come through a certain way for whatever style it is, and specifically, lately I've really been into pure alloy cymbals. The 18 and the 19 crash, the 18 crash, not the 19, 18-inch crash, and then Byzance traditionals are also awesome for crashes. Because the brilliants, sometimes I've used a brilliant here and there in a couple of videos, but they're a little bit too bright, and sometimes in a metal context they don't maybe have as much of this like weight or body, but they sound awesome to like just. If I'm just like jamming over some like hip hop tracks, man, oh my God, it's so fun to just put on like some dry cymbals and like thin stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
That stuff is so fun to play, but like it's just not practical for heavier styles. So. Oh
yeah, especially like that's something that's really interesting I find about your setups, is that a lot of the time like your right and left, you'll have on the right, like it's almost like a balanced number of darker, thinner cymbals to the more like, 19-inch medium thin crash or the alloys or the extreme metals. You kind of like balance that out on either side so that it feels like almost at times, so that every cymbal has its sort of space, and the contrast really like I feel help accentuates what's going on in the guitars and the rest of the song.
Yeah, no, totally, man. One thing that I have kind of put a little bit of thought into is just kind of like the pitches of my cymbals. Mm-hmm. I don't know their pitch or anything, but I do know that, the pure alloy on the right and the Byzance traditional on the left, and then the Classics Custom Dark crash on the far left, all three of them have very distinct sounds. You know what I mean? And usually the ones on the left side are going to have just a little bit more of that like brilliant kind of. They're not going to have as much weight to it, because a lot of the times when I ride on a crash, it's going to be on my right side. So I know that I can go to a pure alloy because it's going to be absolutely consistent for that kind of stuff,
Yeah, for sure.
And the brighter cymbals are going to help for when you accent downbeats or something. For example, I don't know, it's just one context, right?
So you're a really heavy hitter and you've got big sticks. What size sticks do you play with, and how often do you go through cymbals while we're on the topic of them?
Going through cymbals is actually not that much, knock on wood. But like, yeah, I mean, surprisingly not that much. I used to be an idiot, and I used to play with marching sticks for like a few years. And like, I don't know, man, that was a little over the top. I used to use Vic Firth MS4s. Are you familiar with those? Yeah. I don't know. Dude, I broke cymbal stands with those sticks.
Oh my God.
And like lug nuts on a Pearl reference were just like, they would just get trashed,
Yeah.
On a Pearl reference snare, brass reference, sorry. So I downsized from that to MS2s, which are just still a marching stick, but like not as heavy and like not as baseball bat like.
Yeah.
And then I finally said, okay, this is just ridiculous. I'm just going to go to like the biggest stick they offer for drum kit, which for me was Vic Firth Metals.
Oh yes, Vic Firth Metals. Hell yeah! I did the rocks, the metals, and then I finally landed on the Thomas Lang signatures, and that's where I'm at right now.
Yeah, there you go. Thomas Lang signatures are pretty much in the same ballpark as either of those. So
yep. The balance though, oh my God, the balance on those sticks is just phenomenal.
Yeah, it's great, man. So Vic Firth Metal is kind of the size range I'm in right now.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, I'm not really sure if I'm allowed to say this or not, but I guess I'll just go ahead and say it maybe. No, I shouldn't say it.
Okay,
I'm not going to say it.
After
That's going to be weird.
Yeah. No worries.
So one of the things that I'm working with Alex Rudinger on right now, him and I just sampled a whole bunch of drums early last year, actually, January of last year, 2018. So we've been working on this thing for a while, but it's going to be a drum instrument. So we're hoping to, maybe have something out later this year as far as like an Alex and Anup drum library instrument thing going for Contact. So that'll be kind of cool.
Kind of similar to like the Get Good suite with Matt and Nolly sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Pretty much like that. I think we want to just get a little bit more into the software side of things. It's honestly like crazy that it took us this long to figure out that, oh, we should do something like this, Yeah. But I'm really excited about it. It's going to be interesting because it doesn't sound anything like what's already out there, but that's because it's much more natural. So I don't know, it'll be kind of interesting to see what people think because it's not going to be like as much of a plug and play kind of thing, so you're going to get much more of like this sounds like a freshly recorded, well-tuned kit in a studio kind of thing,
Oh, okay. Hell yeah. So like less processing.
Definitely less processing. Yeah. It's going to be a good choice, though. We did like 22 snares or something like that. It was ridiculous.
All you're both Tama artists, so all Tama snares or just cycle through?
No. It's all like a different, just all the snares.
Oh, okay. Right on. Hell yeah. So why don't you just, in closing out, why don't you just let everybody know where to connect with you, your YouTube, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, sure. So on YouTube, Anup Sastry, AS Drummer 2008, sorry. Instagram is Anup Sastry. Facebook, Anup Sastry Music. And that's pretty much it.
All right, brother. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to do this today. It's been a ton of fun.
Thank you so much for having me, man.
So there you go, guys. I really hope you enjoyed episode 9 of Line Check featuring Anup Sastry. I really had a fantastic time talking with Anup today. It was awesome getting to know a little bit more about him, some things about his story and where he came from. And it was really cool to kind of uncover how he goes through the process of actually writing the songs that he publishes under his own brand, which was really neat to listen to. So I really hope you enjoyed this interview. I hope you enjoyed this conversation. If you really enjoyed this video and you want to support the channel, you can get involved and actually listen to these line checks live when I tape them by pledging to me on Patreon and joining the Discord community where I actually broadcast these types of recordings live for you guys. So you can find a link to my Patreon in the description below. You can find a new line of merch in the description below. You can check out some Wyatt Stav merch, maybe pick up a t-shirt, support the channel kind of thing. And if you want to connect with me further, you can do so at all of my social media pages, which are on the screen for you right now and in the description below. Thank you so much for checking out this video, and I will see you all very soon with something new.